people would see the word disability pride and think, okay, that means I have to like the fact that I have this condition. I have to like everything about it. And I think there's a misconception that disability pride means you have to enjoy being a disabled person. And for me personally, speaking from my own experiences, you know, the consequences of my disability are very painful and very traumatic every single day. So the disability pride for me isn't so much about being proud of the fact that I have this condition. Pride for me is accepting who I am and being proud of the fact that this is the situation and I am who I am and it's made me who I am. And disability pride is about celebrating, like Jamie said, the diversity of disability and celebrating change.
Jamie and Celia, welcome to Disabled and Proud's Disability Pride Month special. How are you both?
We're good.
We are very good. I can't believe we got allowed back. I think we must have did something right last time, because I was like, after we did it, I was like, oh my God, I said way too much. So I'm glad you brought us back together this time.
This is super fun for me because I don't often get to do three-way conversations. So I love this.
So happy. Like, you're my favourite people in the whole world. So we're so excited. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. I can't believe the last time I was on was, what, 2 years ago? Nearly 2 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know. Time has flown, and also it feels like no time at all. I don't really understand time. I am quite time blind. It's the neurospiciness in me. I don't know when last week started and it began. So I think 2 years is like such a big amount of time for me to even try and understand that. I can't believe it's been that long. But we've been pals ever since.
But then sometimes it feels like, even like 2 years, sometimes I feel like something that happened years ago feels really short. And then something that's happened like yesterday, I'm like, I don't even remember that. Like, my memory is definitely very neurospicy at the moment.
Same. But guys, the first question that I want to ask you, all to do with disability pride, is what does disability pride mean to you?
Jamie, you can go first.
Oh, I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to do this. I kind of thought I knew what I was going to say, and then I'm like, oh God, do I know what I'm going to say? What does it mean to me? Okay, so for me, it is about change. It is about hope. And for me, like, I think about myself when I was younger, there was no representation for me to look up to. I was segregated in school. When I was a teenager, I was binge drinking, I was self-harming, I was struggling to really accept who I was, and had a lot of internalized ableism, which we know doesn't go away. So it stayed with me into my early 20s. As an adult, I struggled to find employment. So for me, disability pride is hope, and the hope for change, because I know that if I would have seen that representation as a kid, as a teenager, as an adult, I would have been like, oh my God, the world can't be designed for people like me. Oh my God, I can't belong. But we didn't have that. So pride for me is hope and change. But it's also about amplifying people's voices. And I think what you're doing right now is so important. We need to hear we need to hear from diverse voices, because we always forget that disability is not the same for everybody. Like, everybody experiences being disabled completely different. So it's about celebrating the diversity of disability as well.
Beautiful.
I love that answer. I think what I'm going to say maybe quite controversial, that maybe it is a little bit controversial how I see disability pride, but I'm going to say it with my chest, is for me, it's not so much about, because I have a terminal illness, it's very chronic, it contributes to a lot of pain, a lot of fatigue, you know, tubes coming out of everywhere. People would see the word disability pride and think, okay, that means I have to like the fact that I have this condition. I have to like everything about it. And I think there's a misconception that disability pride means you have to enjoy being a disabled person. And for me personally, speaking from my own experiences, you know, the consequences of my disability are very painful and very traumatic every single day. So the disability pride for me isn't so much about being proud of the fact that I have this condition. Because if someone could give me a magic wand and say, you know, tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're not going to have this, do you want to take that? I would say, oh my gosh, 100% yes. You know, pride in other areas of identity and pick one and take it away, would you? Lots of people would say no, but I would say yes, I would take it away. So for like me, like Jamie, pride for me is accepting who I am and being proud of the fact that this is the situation and I am who I am and it's made me who I am. And disability pride is about celebrating, like Jamie said, the diversity of disability and celebrating change. Disability pride is about, okay, looking at the bigger picture and saying, what can we do? How can we move forward? How can we be more accessible? How can we be more inclusive? For me personally, in my own experiences, it's less about my own identity and more about proudness of the community as a whole, looking at our strengths, looking at how incredible we are. But for me personally, it's not about pride of the fact that I have a disability and I'm really proud of that. I'm not proud of being disabled in that sense, but I'm proud of our community and I'm proud of raising awareness. So pride for me means something a little bit different.
I love what you just said there, and I have to say, because it's in my head and it's ADHD, but when you said I am who I am, all I could hear was I am who I am, and I wanted to start clapping, but I knew it would cut you off. But it's true, I love your answer, Celia. We had such a really, we've talked about this loads, and I just love it because we don't be real about disabilities sometimes. You know, when you look at content online, it's all very, wow, look at me, I'm doing this, and I'm amazing. When really we don't see the photos of us lying in bed crying, or in moments where we've faced barriers or we've heard something ableist where we're just like, this is shit. We need to start accepting it. Being disabled is shit sometimes. It's also amazing because you accomplish things that you never thought you would ever be able to do. But it is shit, and it's not just a small portion of it. It's a large portion of it because society's not designed for us.
I really love what both of you have said because it's two different opinions under the same umbrella. And I think a lot of people tend to get that really confused about disability, is that all of us all play for the exact same team and the exact same tide, and we all support the exact same colours. And actually that's not always the case. And I think it's really important to have this conversation, particularly because disability pride does mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it isn't just what you said, Celia, about being proud of your disability. You're right, it comes with trauma, it comes with pain, it comes with days where you want to lie in bed. I mean, I know for myself, there are days where I am mentally so exhausted because my brain does not work in the same way that everybody else's on this planet's brains work. And that in itself can be infuriating and frustrating, and it can make me want to cry and crawl under my covers and just stay there. But actually there's something really beautiful about being able to celebrate exactly who you are for who you are. And I don't mean that with a lot of fluff or a lot of airs and graces. I mean just being like, do you know what? This is the situation. I am in a world that is not built for me, but I'm going to try and make it better for other people, as well as myself. But other people also need to hear this, and they need to realize it's okay to be different. And I think that's a really important message of pride, is being okay with being different.
Yeah. And can we say 100%, one thing?
And I want to...
Oh, Priscilla?
One of the things I want to add to that is the fact that there's so much messaging around Paralympians and superheroes and superpowers. And you know, that is incredible and so beneficial. And I love celebrating other people in that. But what we need to understand is we have to be careful with our messaging, because, you know, I looked at the 2012 Paralympic Games. It was the biggest award, so much for disability, amazing, fantastic. But I was sat bedbound at the time thinking, now my internalized ableism is just worse, because now the messaging I'm getting is that if I'm a disabled person, I have to be doing X, any of that. And I'm trying to look after myself. And now I feel like I'm not achieving anything, because my main focus is looking after myself and being as strong as I can be and trying to build something for myself. But that felt like I was failing. It felt like I wasn't good at being disabled. And I think people need to really understand the fact that it's okay to not be okay. And we say that a lot in the conversation around mental health. Being a disability, it's okay. Like, you are your biggest asset and you need to look after yourself. And we have to care for ourselves a little bit more than other people do. And that is still achievement. So I feel pride in the fact that I'm able to, you know, get up and do my blood infusions every single day at 7 o'clock in the morning when I really don't want to, and change my tubes and change my dressings. I'm not proud of the fact that I'm chronically ill and terminally ill, but I'm proud of myself that I get up and I do that every single day and I look after myself. So there's that kind of nuance of the conversation about how pride applies to you as an individual, and nobody's way of interpreting that is wrong. I think people get very critical of other people's lived experiences, and I'm like, it's their lived experience, not yours. It's not for you to tell them that they're wrong. And I can see Jamie nodding his head, and we totally agree on this, is the fact that it's not
100%.
for other people to critique your own lived experience and how you feel.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? I think what you said there as well comes back to kind of representation as well, because people do. They'll be like, oh, disabled people are Paralympians, or oh my God, you got a job. Oh my God, this is amazing. Let's throw a party. It's like, people get jobs. Like, you know, I this isn't an accomplishment. I didn't get a promotion. I got a job. And yes, it can feel like an accomplishment when you've navigated so many barriers to entry, to employment. We've all been there. But I think it comes back to representation as well. And we see disabled people represented through inspiration porn. Oh, well, if they could do it, you can do it. And it's almost like this sense of, oh my God, not again. But then I sometimes sit there and I think, I want to see the disabled person lying on the sofa watching the movie in the evening. I want to see the disabled person eating a tub of ice cream, enjoying their lives. I want to see someone at a concert with headphones, noise cancelling headphones. I want to see somebody using a fidget spinner on the train. Like, I want to see actual representation, not this stock image photos of disabled people doing the most incredible, inspiring things. Because, oh my God, I'm not inspiring by any means at all. If you see me half the time, like, I'm dressed with the top down, pajamas below. There's nothing inspiring about that. But yet we idolize disabled people, or we other them, or we pity them. It's like, just treat us like punching people.
Something you've said, and it really harks back to the point Celia made about almost the good disabled person and like this bad image of disability that we've got. And Celia's right, that Paralympian inspiration porn, oh my God, amazing. You went to Sainsbury's and you bought your own toilet roll, pat on the back. You're an inspiration, you're amazing. And also then we have this flip side where we have this whole idea of like benefit scroungers and people who are living off the state because they're disabled and they can't do anything. And we're really always literally in between those two extremes, that you're either one or the other, and you're never really in the in-between. And I think, Jamie, what you said is so right about representation. We don't have that representation of the middle ground. That representation doesn't exist because actually, and I hate to say it, but I feel like I can say it, is that it's not entertaining enough. There isn't anything interesting
100%.
or entertaining about a disabled person.
Disability's not sexy.
About a disabled person who's eating their ice cream. Like, that isn't entertaining. That isn't sexy. You're right.
But it's the same as like sports magazines, sports, and you know, like, yes, Paralympians have done such an incredible space to kind of draw attention to the fact that yes, we can do sport just as well as you can, or we can do X, Y, Z just as well as you can. But yet we don't see disabled models on the runway. Like, have you ever seen a disabled Victoria's Secret model walking down the runway? Maybe they have started doing it now. Like, I'm probably not up to date with fashion. But I think when it comes to representation, we don't see it. Like, I never remember seeing any teachers with disability. I don't remember seeing any of my colleagues in the workplace with disability. I was the only person who seemed to be talking about it. And I'm not alone, because the statistics back it up. We know that we're, is it 1 in 4 globally? Yeah. So it's just like, how can there be that no representation? Is it that the representation's not there? Are we choosing to ignore it because disability is not seen as sexy or exciting? Or is it that we haven't created spaces where people feel that they can bring themselves, like, you know what, I am going to talk about my disability, I am going to share this. I think there's a mix of so much going on, what is wrong, but I think so much of it is just caused by ableism. It's just systemic, isn't it? You can't escape it.
So, unlearning ableism is your guys' little baby. And I would love it if we could talk a little bit about how it promotes inclusivity, how we talk about disability, the idea of unlearning ableism. Let's delve into it. So what made you guys come up with this idea?
You know, there are so many incredible organizations out there tackling ableism, tackling accessibility and inclusion, and that's fantastic and that's amazing. What we notice from kind of disabled is that, I mean, go and read our policy paper, you'll see the fact that a lot of people do not actually know what the word ableism is. I trained in law, I specialized in human rights law and equality law, and I didn't learn the word ableism once while I was at university studying. But I learned about racism, about sexism. People don't know what ableism is. And when you're having a conversation in a room about ableism, people are looking at you going, I have no idea what she's talking about. And for us, that was a real problem, where it's like we're promoting so much about accessibility and inclusion, but we're not tackling the message of why. How is this impacting people? How do people feel? And then you go on to conversations about internalized ableism. You know, even disabled people don't know what internalized ableism is, because nobody taught us, nobody we've all experienced mental health, direct consequence of our disability. Did anybody tell you that the word was internalized ableism and that there were specific tools that we could be given to deal with that? No, it was treated as an isolated thing. And I think what we wanted to be come at it from the perspective of, this is the situation, you know you're inaccessible, you know you're not inclusive, you know you're doing this and this and this wrong, and this is how it's impacting people. So it's not just the facts, it's also about kind of plugging into that emotional element and that value element and say, this is the amount of this is the workforce you're missing out on. This is the mental health implications that you're not addressing. And that's what we wanted to do. And through our LinkedIn Live series, we want to make sure that we're representing intersectionality. You know, Jamie and I sit here as two white individuals, and we recognize the fact that there are other opinions of voice that need to be valued just as much as everybody else. And I think intersectionality is so important. And that's why we started our LinkedIn Live series, because we want to hear everybody's opinion, everybody's experiences. No two people are the same. And then that has, you know, consequently snowballed into our policy report that has been shared, I don't know how many hundreds of times, which is amazing, which is the first time anybody's ever collected data on ableism. It's 2024. How the hell has that happened? And it's, the biggest one is that 98% of disabled people have experienced ableism. They've experienced discrimination. And that is really quite shocking. You know, we all know it, but seeing it in black and white on paper is another thing.
I think it's shocking. It's probably shocking for non-disabled people to hear it. They're probably like, oh, wow. Whereas I think with us, it's just like, oh my God, it surprises me, but I don't know why it surprises me. It's like you almost find out the problems a lot worse. You've been pulling at the string and you've pulled it out. It's like, oh my God, this thing's all knotted and I need to undo it, or like a lead or something. Like, do you know what I mean? It's almost that fear. But then with unlearning ableism as well, I think like me and Celia met through LinkedIn, so we did. And like we have like bestie energy. Like I don't know what I would do without Celia now. Like she's my go-to for everything. But like we were having conversations about, you know what, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to say it to you. This is a safe space. This part of being disabled shit, or I can't cope with this here, or this is annoying me. And for the first time, I think I was articulating to somebody on a really deep level about how I was feeling. I think you were doing the same thing. We were talking about really things. I think I was telling you things I wouldn't even tell my partner. Sorry, dear, if you listen to this, but it was just easy, and it was like the pieces would fall together, and it was
someone
like, oh my God, someone gets it.
Yeah.
Everyone else is probably in the same boat. Why aren't we talking about this? Why aren't we getting to the heart of systemic oppression? Because that's what ableism is. It's systemic oppression. We talk about racism. We have an international day against ableism. We have days against homophobia, biphobia, lesbian phobia, transphobia. We have days around gender equality. We have days around disability, don't get me wrong, but we have no specific time or no specific space to talk about ableism. And when you look at all these other isms and all these other phobias, why isn't ableism given that same level? Because let's be honest, inaccessibility is ableism. Mistreating a disabled person is ableism. And yes, I know there's a whole conversation around is it disableism or ableism. The two are one and the same. One just essentially means, ableism essentially just means favour of non-disabled people, which is the way society has been designed. So I think when you look at this space and what we and Celia were having conversation with each other, was like, we need to do something. We need to put this energy out there. And like as Celia said, like it started off a live series. It's something really exciting that we're doing behind the scenes with everything, but it's growing. It's got momentum, and we've delivered training for like colleges. We've delivered training for Google, one of the biggest brands in the world. And it's like, we're just sitting here sharing our lived experiences and putting it into training. And it's now just blossomed. Like we do a whole host of services. Like we're consulting, we're training, we're speaking, we're just everything. Yes, just give us everything. All fingers, all pies.
But one of the things I wanted to make sure that we always preserved was the fact that not every conversation needs to be really formal and really serious and really managed and really negotiated. The main purpose of our LinkedIn Live series, we want people to feel like they're just chatting with their friends and they're just getting it off their chest. They're swearing, they're saying like, oh my God, have you experienced it? Oh my God, me too. It doesn't always have to be quite so serious in the sense of being very formal. And we wanted to create that space where people feel like they're talking to friends and having with, oh my God, they get it too. And then when we do our, our training and our policy work and our auditing, it's about I'm coming to you as a disabled person and I'm telling you this is shit. Not, you know, oh, I think in 100 words, la, la, la. No, I'm telling you it's not good enough. And you are directly impacting me.
But we meet people where they're at too, and I think that's so important. It's like when I kind of come into the world, because I worked in corporate for 5 years in the world in DEI, and I came into this space and there was so many big words being used. Not big words, but such complex words like diversity, equity, inclusion, equality. And you knew that people were talking about it, but they didn't actually understand it. And I didn't really understand it. And then it was through my experiences of navigating and looking back at my experiences, it's like, oh my God, so this is what this actually all means. And I learned how to digest things. And I think that's what we do really well as well, is we ensure that when we're delivering training, when we're speaking, that we're trying to get people's opinions in so we can talk about things live in the moment so we can help them break that down. And there's no fear. There's nothing wrong to say. We're going to say the wrong thing.
Say the thing.
Say the thing. Mistakes are human.
Say what you want to say, literally.
But that's it. It's like you have to meet people where they are. And I think a lot of time with disability, we try to talk down or we try to shout sometimes. And it's just like, oh, you need to listen to me, which is completely fine to do. Get angry, just don't turn into the Hulk. But you also have to meet people where they are, because we talk about not everyone navigates the world in the same way. Well, not everyone learns the same way. So we have to try to break it down and meet everybody individually. It's blossomed. Like, I'm so happy I get to work with my best days, like best friends synergy. But yeah, it's really exciting.
It is. And it's also, I love your LinkedIn Live series. I've been on your LinkedIn Live series. Let's be honest. It was a terrible day for Brooke, but never mind. But it
wasn't your fault. It was a cafe.
Honestly, never again. Never again. But do you know what? We live and we learn. But what I do love about what you said is about having everybody there to have their own experiences, but also to have that commonality of being like, do you know what? Like, I've had that experience too and it's shit. And something that we've really said today that actually I think is a really important takeaway is that sometimes being disabled just is that. Like, I know I talk about disability pride a lot. It's something that I love. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. I'm very similar with you guys with unlearning ableism. But actually there has to be this allowance for people to be able to say, today is not the day, today is a shit day, and that be okay. And I'm being able to say that in such a way that people find it accessible, because actually, Jamie, what you said is that quite often DE and I can be very inaccessible because we're using big fluffy words. And also what I've also noticed is if you use those big fluffy words, everybody, or at least the vast majority of people, will turn off because it's an attack and people don't necessarily understand it and people don't like to listen about how they are the problem. But actually, if you're able to meet people at their level and be like, do you know what, this is the situation, this is how you're like exacerbating that, and this is how it then affects me and my population and my people and my community, you can start to see the changes. And I think that's what you guys have done so well with unlearning ableism, is that it feels very accessible for a lot of different people, and not everybody has that. And that's not me slating other people, it's just a fact.
Yeah, I think we try to make our slogan is making the comfortable uncomfortable. Yeah, thank you. But you're right. Like people are uncomfortable when they don't know, and when you don't know something, you have two reactions: it's either to kind of push back and get defensive, or it's to kind of say, you know what, okay, I don't know this here. Let me open myself up to learning. Majority of people follow the first one, and they will just push back, or they'll call you woke, or they'll call you sensitive, or oh my God, you're just being dramatic. When the reality is, if people didn't start to challenge this, and we're seeing more and more people challenging it, which is incredible, but if people didn't speak out against ableism, if we didn't try to make this uncomfortable, less comfortable, we would still be in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, 100 years' time, whatever the timeline is, we'd still be having to have the same conversations. Because if you even look back at the history of disability, and Celia, we talk about this all the time, the history of disability is still quite recent as well. So it's just like, for us, people are like, has there not been some progress? Of course there is, and there should be progress in open traction. You know, every step that you're doing is a step in the right direction, but we have to really be open to sitting down and saying, do you know what, this is how I've contributed to ableism, I've been using this language, it's wrong, I've been creating inaccessible content, here's how I fix that. It's opening yourself up to learning, and we have to get comfortably uncomfortable. Like, there's no other way around it.
Yeah, big 100%. Fan of being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. It's something that I absolutely love. But I was wondering if you guys could share maybe a personal story, not necessarily like personal as in like love life, but as in like something that's been in your own sphere where in a moment you've really accepted disability pride and it's played like a massive role in you unlearning some form of ableism that you've had internalized or externalized.
For me, I think it was, I started working in the disability space and, was disabled, and people knew that. You can see it on me if I'm with my stick, or you can see my tube out. Spoken about my disability ever. It was always just about the disability conversation in general. And I remember it actually started when I met Jamie, when I started the LinkedIn Creator course, and I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about my story, because I've never heard anybody talk about my like anything similar to what I've got. What I have is like 1 in 70 million people, so there aren't very many of us around. And I was like, but maybe someone can relate to this in their own story with their own condition that might follow a similar path. And the first time I was like, oh gosh, I was like, okay, I'm going to put my story online. And then my story landed up in the Metro, and it landed in Lad Bible. 99% of the comments were horrific and horrible. Yeah. But that didn't matter to me, because I was so proud of myself about something that I'd hidden for so long was out in the open, and I'd done it, and I'd spoken about it. And following from that, even though 99% of it was horrible in response, saying, oh my God, drain on the NHS, boo, get her out, whatever. The comments that I got and the direct messages being like, thank you so much. Like, I have a feeding tube too, and nobody talks about it, la, 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 la. And I felt so proud of myself for having the courage to talk about things that I'd never talked about before. And it can be frustrating as well, because whenever I do like a news piece or something like that, like I work in politics, it's my job to be on top of the news and on top of what's happening. I remember I wrote a story for a newspaper article for a very large news organization, and the story was about the disability spend gap. So we know the gender pay gap, it's the disability pay gap as well, but incorporated with gender. You double up, shit's creek in terms of pay. And instead of the headline being disability pay gap, it was woman who hasn't eaten for 5 years talks about the fact that she's not paid properly.
Which kind of completely misses the point.
And in that moment, oh my God, completely misses the point. But going back to the fact that I'm still so proud of the fact that I used my story as a vessel to make people aware of what was happening. Do I wish that they used my story to make a vessel of what was happening? No, but the point was the fact that my story contributed to that even being a news story, when I guarantee you that would not have been before. So that makes me proud that I did that. Yeah. Thank you, babes.
I love you.
I love you too.
You create the space, and every time I come on here, I get
cry,
really emotional.
bitch,
like
cry.
I did last time you had me on here. I did last time I was here, but Celia speaks it, because I think because we've so many conversations with Celia about stuff like this, and when you hear when you speak to somebody, you know what their internalized ableism is, or worse being, and you hear them say something like that, it's just like, it's beyond.
It's magical.
That's pride to me. Like, that's pride to me. It's magical. Like, I'm proud of my friend for finding that empowerment. I'm proud of my friend for starting unlearning ableism with me. But like, if I had to pick, like, I don't think there's one moment for me, and like, I'll be really honest, as it was last time as well as here, I really had quite a messed up time accepting the fact I was disabled. Trigger warning, I binge drank, I self-harmed, I attempted suicide, I hated who I was. And that wasn't just like, oh, you was a teenager. That was right up until my nearly late 20s, before I found meaningful employment. Like, I was a mess, I was taking drugs, I was, Celia, you know all these stories, but like, I was out of control. And I just didn't want to be alive. I wanted to unalive myself. And I thought being disabled was a horrible, negative thing. And I thought that it was just going to be continuous exclusion, continuous embarrassment. And it really hurt. Like, it hurt for years. And for me to then go into employment, because I found that job with AMS 5 years ago, and it was the first place they ever said to me, what can we do to support you? And then being able to kind of get that support and actually feel what it felt like as a disabled person at 28, to suddenly realise, oh my God, I can have a job, I can have a career. And then in that 5 years to become a disability lead, to be sharing my lived experiences, to be using the kind of traumas and the experience and pain from my past to shape what I was doing. I think for me, that is the proud, because I think if I didn't get into this role, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. Like, I probably would have unalived myself a long time ago. I'd probably be, my mum chained to me 24/7, so I couldn't, because it was horrible. It's horrible for the people around me. But when I speak to even my partner, like, my partner came into my life around the same time as I was kind of really struggling, so he saved me then. But like in the past 5 years, having that employment, having that kind of support at home, it just completely transformed my life. Like I was able to feel like I could belong, I could have a career. And like if I speak to my mum now, she's just like, your whole life has completely changed. And she tells me how proud she is. And I'm like, that's proud to me because I made it through a time I didn't think I could. So yeah, I don't want to get emotional, but that's what it is to me. It's the fact that I made it to where I am today.
I want to thank you both for sharing those stories.
Oh, mush.
Because it's not easy to talk about going through hardship. And Jamie, what you've just spoken about is a really massive part of like your journey, and also it contributes to who you are as a person. And actually, to be able to talk about it now and to look back and realize that whilst it was absolutely awful what you went through, it made you who you are. And on some level, I'm completely putting words in your mouth at this point, but you're grateful for those experiences because they've made you who you are today.
100%.
Is a really beautiful thing to be able to watch you talk through. So I really, really want to thank you for sharing that, because it's not just me that you're going to help by saying that, which sounds very cliche and very woo-woo, but actually these conversations really matter. And talking about how sometimes it's really fucking hard to be disabled, and actually that's okay, is so important, because there's so many people out there who don't know that. And hopefully by having these conversations, they'll realise that actually it does get better, even though it doesn't feel like it.
100%. Like I have a nephew now.
And I want to add to what I'm so proud. Like I'm proud of all of us, because life has been so hard and unnecessarily hard in a lot of instances. Like so much of our experiences could have been avoided. And that's what makes me so frustrated. And I want to add to what Jamie has said. And Jamie was like trying to get hold of me, and I was like, I'm literally having a mental breakdown. Not today. I can't, not today. And I want to add the fact that it fluctuates, and that's okay. Like people see, calling us advocates, but people see us online, like doing loads of stuff and going to important meetings and standing outside Downing Street and, marching in campaigns and doing all of these things. See, the vast majority of the time, I'm sat crying, standing there, with tubes coming out of me everywhere, looking at my infusion and my needle and just thinking, I cannot do this today. Like, I don't know where to find my inner strength to do this today. Like, and I sit there and I think, trigger warning conversation. I sit there and sometimes I think to myself, why the hell am I bothering? I'm going to be dead in 6 years. Why am I why do this? Why am I putting myself online for people to attack me? What is the point? Why don't I just sit down and not do anything for 6 years? And the reason I'm saying this is I want people to understand the fact that just because you have a better grasp on internalized ableism, it can creep back up on you. And when you least expect it, or when you do inspect it. And that is totally okay. That's not a setback. That's not, slipping back down again. It's totally normal to experience that fluctuation and have those thoughts that you had from a very dark time. I think most of us have been through very, very dark periods, and Jamie sharing is just what we all need to kind of know that we aren't alone in that. It's sometimes okay for that to come back into your head. And I think people need to understand that fluctuation is normal.
But that's trauma, and I think that's what I think it kind of goes back to what you said at the start. We don't talk about the side of trauma of disability, and it's there. And like, this is the thing about internalized ableism. The biggest question we get is, how do I overcome it? It's like, I'm so sorry to be the one.
You don't
overcome that. That sits there like a suitcase, will unpack. Somebody will say something to you, it will trigger something. Something will have happened to you the day before. Somebody will say something the next day, you will be triggered. There is that psychological impact. That's almost like layers, or like a game of Jenga block, and you're pulling things out every time it happens, and suddenly it falls and crumbles. But it's natural. It's a natural state to feel this is shit, because what is happening around you is you can't be included. You're being excluded. You can't make friends as easy. You can't socialize as easy. You are expected to jump over barriers and hurdles that non-disabled people won't ever have to dream about until they themselves experience disability at some point. But you're having to go through this, but you're expected to show up time and time again with a smile, be a willing, contributing member of society. Don't be a benefits ground. You're meant to have a job. You're meant to be amazing. When those opportunities aren't there, companies, if they're hiring disabled people, let's just call a spade, they don't do it as much as they should. Instead, they opt for things like, we're going to do a work placement, or we're doing a training or apprenticeship program. Well, that's great, but are you given meaningful employment at the end of that? Because I don't want I went through so many jobs when I was younger. Like, I had more jobs than I'd had dinners. I think I said that last time I said it too. And like, I was getting opportunities. I was taking every opportunity. Oh, they're doing an apprenticeship. If you work here, you can get a job after it. That never happened because I was disabled, because I was needy, I was an expense. And it's like, I think Disability Pride Month for me, I think when we talk about it, as we obviously we talk a lot about individuals, but we have to talk about the corporate responsibility. And I think the corporate responsibility in Pride Month is companies need to use this time to look at the next 12 months. This should be their starting date of disability for the next 365 days, unless it's a leap year, I think it's less. But for the year ahead, look ahead, use December, International Day of Persons with Disability, as a review date, but set objectives, review what your recruitment's like, what your culture's like, run anti-ableism audits, spoiler, that's us, run audits on your organisation, look how inclusive, accessible, representative, not the ableist you are, and take action. Look at it in December and say, right, it's International Day, here's what we've done, share that, tell us what you've done, we want to see what journey you've been on. Because if you're sitting saying we're inclusive and we can see your website's inaccessible or you're lacking representation, that inclusion is literally just hollow words. Like, you're talking shit. So take action. And then after International Day, after you reviewed and shared that and uplifted disabled colleagues, use the next 12 months to get to July again. 6 months to get to July again. And in that July, look at what you've done and go again, because there's no destination with disability inclusion. We're never going to be the most fully accessible, inclusive, all singing, all dancing organisation, because technology changes, people's needs changes, disability changes, people's adjustments they need change. So there's so many variations to this, and with the advancement of AI, we're going to see an acceleration again of this. So keep reviewing, keep auditing, speak to colleagues, get feedback from them, and take corporate responsibility for Disability Pride Month. Support communities. Just don't do it inside your work. Support communities. Work with local charities. Work with things like Even Break. Pay disabled speakers.
Yes.
Like, their contribution has to go beyond just, oh, we did this. You need to support the community. Put money into that community. Invest in that community. Stop using this as inspiration point on certain dates or as a marketing trend, and actually take that responsibility beyond responsibility to accountability. So I'm off at a tangent.
No, but I love a good tangent, and I also love a good rant. And I think what you said, though, about including the disabled community in forward thinking is imperative. And something that you touched on was this word overcome, which personally I think could actually be maybe one of the worst words in the English language. Just because this idea that you can overcome disability or you can overcome this problem, actually, it makes me it makes me want to be sick, because you don't overcome disability. You don't overcome ableism. These things don't exist. You learn to live with, and you have tools put in place to learn how to handle it for yourself. But this idea of overcoming disability is not like a fucking mountain. We're not going up Kilimanjaro and then coming back down the other side. We're actually just going to take some rocks with us, and that's how it's going to roll. That's how we're doing this.
Helps me, and
the word overcome medical model, it all links into this kind of curing mentality, and we can make you better, and you're the problem, you need to overcome it. No, you lot need to fucking sort your shit out, because I shouldn't be having to overcome the barriers that you've placed. And it's again, this word overcome puts the burden back on me again, saying you have to overcome what society has built. No, you have to tear it down. It's not my accountability and responsibility. It's your burden of accountability and responsibility. And I want to add to kind of words that make me want to fucking vomit, is when people say, reach out and they say, oh, I'm sure one day there'll be a cure. My friend took these vitamins and it cured her IBS.
Did you do yoga?
Babes have got organ paralysis. A vitamin. Oh, God, have you tried Pilates? Or have you tried basic training? Fuck off.
Can you get eye surgery? Can you get eye surgery, Jamie? Like, how can I get eye surgery? Like, I'm registered blind. My eyes dance 90 to 90. If somebody's cut out my eye's going to be cut off before they can do anything, because my pupils just go side to side. Like, I'm 34. If I could have it, I would have had it by now.
I would have fucking done it. Literally. Literally. I like that. It's the mentality, isn't it? That people use all these words. Infuriate. You're putting it back on me again. You're putting it back on me. I have to learn to deal with it. I have to learn to overcome the challenges. I have to investigate how to cure myself. Babes, I'm not ever going to be fucking cured. That's the point in having a terminal genetic condition. Unless you want to eradicate my genes, I'll see you in 1,000 years when we've worked out how to genetically change people. I'll see you then. but you need to be focusing on, and that's what like disability pride is kind of, and saying, you know, what can I see happening? What can I see being done? And from a political perspective, I'm infuriated because I think, you know, disability is not just about health and social care. I want to see in Disability Pride Month, and, you know, we have been a bit fucked this year with the fact that we're in Disability Pride Month and we've got a general election as we speak. I'm off after this to the polling station. But it infuriates me because I think it's not just about social care, having to see, you know, having a conversation and flying a flag. That is not disability pride. Disability pride is tangible action. And that is what we're missing. Disability pride and the ethos of it and where we are in our kind of disability history movement, we aren't there yet. And that's what needs to shift. Is it's not about tokenism, flying a flag and having a flag. Great, it's a starting point. But as I said to Jamie the other day, I'm not going to fucking applaud you until you've finished. And I think that's important, is people expect awards for doing the bare minimum. And I'm like, if you've done half a job, I'm not going to congratulate you until you finish that job. And I think that's really important to say, is like disability pride is that job and doing it to the full, doing it to the end point.
I love what you've just said about I'm not going to applaud you halfway through a job. And I think a lot of people need to take that on board, because actually I think a lot of disabled people in particular will, unbeknown to them, applaud halfway through when actually it's the bare minimum and you're just getting faced with like bottom rung, this is what we're going to do for acceptance, and actually it shouldn't be like that. And that in itself is magical.
But that's internalized ableism, isn't it? It's like when people say thank you for accessibility. Like when someone get a reasonable adjustment and somebody goes, thank you for making that adjustment for me. We shouldn't be thanking. It's basic human right. And I think that natural tendency to applaud someone halfway through, you know, they've done the bare minimum. We applaud because it's something. And that ableism, internalized ableism kicks in and we go, we're so grateful. And like I sit here and I'm grateful that disability pride exists. And Jamie and I had a conversation on a live the other day when we said, you know, there's this big conversation about people criticizing disability pride and saying, well, pride is 365 days of the year. We shouldn't have a separate month. We shouldn't need it. And that conversation, actually, it's an amplifier and it's something which provides this focus. We just need disability pride to be executed a lot better than it currently is. And then I think more people will feel that pride mentality, where at the moment it's very difficult to sit here sometimes and celebrate disability pride. And I'm going to be completely honest and say it with my chest. It's very difficult to sit here and celebrate disability pride when I can name very few organizations that I genuinely believe are fully disability inclusive and celebratory. So what am I celebrating? I'm celebrating people. I'm celebrating my community and how proud I am of the work that we're doing and how strong we are and how amazing we are. What's frustrating is that disability pride should also be celebrating the work that's going on. So actually, I'm not celebrating pride to the fullest, not because of my own fault, but because, again, society isn't taking it on board.
But can we also talk about the complete lack of, because the topic we're talking about, I have to say it, and I'm probably going to get hate for this, but I'm going to do it anyway, because we all know I love a bit of controversy. We talk about this,
much.
Like you talk about applauding a half-assed job, and yesterday I seen a post from, and when I say it, I'm going to say who they're, the National Diversity Awards. I'm going to say it.
I love this so much.
I'm going for it because last year I seen a post from Leanne Maskell and I had challenged the accessibility and the amount of information they asked for somebody to fill in, and she kind of talked about the accessibility of it. I kind of thought the same and didn't think anything of it. But what kept happening in the back of my mind is, this is also fucking inaccessible. Like, every little piece of content they do is inaccessible. Last year I was put on to the Inclusive Award. I have an award behind me and I'm saying this, so I'm such a little bitch. But I have to say it because they weren't accessible then. And I had reached out and I said, hey, these won't help with this year. Just want to make it accessible. They completely ignored me. Fine, happens all the time. This year, yesterday I was on LinkedIn and I seen their head, their representative, their CEO, I don't know what his title is, but he basically posted how Disability Pride Month is very much about disabled gay people and that these two protected characteristics shouldn't have a month to get another separate month straight after Pride Month. And that is not what Pride was about. You completely got the wrong messaging. But what irritated me the most is that this same company had messaged their network of people who must have won last year asking for stories about Disability Pride Month. And I sat there and they'd asked these stories, and then their CEO was sitting saying this post online, and I sat there and I went, this company has completely asked people for lived experiences and opinions, when really what you just openly done is say, actually, this isn't, we don't agree with this here. We've actually misinterpreted the month. We don't care about tick boxing. And then you look at the accessibility again this year of the awards, which has gotten worse. Sorry, I'm so irritated at this. But I then sit there and I think, this is what is happening in this space. There is people who are meant to be leaders within the DEI space, so within this inclusion space, who are not practicing what they're preaching. They are tick boxing the whole way through, and we let them get off with it every single time because we're so fudging grateful to have been awarded. Oh my God, somebody nominated me. Amazing. But when are we going to get to a place? Like, we're all awards like the Scope Awards. We're all awards like the Shark Trust Awards. Now, I'm not saying neither is like, oh my God, this is one you should follow, because both do an incredible job. But when do we get to the stage where every single DEI awards are actually accessible? Because let's also talk about the fact that when you take this recognition, you get invited to a fancy dinner or a corporate company pays thousands of pounds to get a table. How the fuck is that inclusion? How is that equity? How is that recognising that we all don't have the same starting point? And then even to get into it further, you have to go in black tie. How fucking inaccessible is that? Do you know how hard it is to be a bigger guy in a suit and tie who's autistic and ADHD who just can't sit still? Like, it is not comfortable. That is not inclusive. There's no sensory
I was just about to say that about sensory zones.
It's horrible. I have tried.
I'm not even gonna.
Things. It's
literally. I rang Jamie 2 days ago. I won a place on a creators program, which is I can't say the name. I wish I could. It's like the organisations in the UK that is government funded, huge, and it was at the biggest gallery, wink wink, in London. It was 32 degrees in there, and I walked in and I already felt like bloody Make-A-Wish in there, because I was like, there are people around me with millions of followers. I've clearly been picked as a diversity tick box here. Like I literally feel it radiating out of me. This is Make-A-Wish, and I was 30 degrees. Oh, I'm going to faint, do this, do heat, and I can't stand up. I asked for a chair from 3 different people and I was denied. I was so proud of myself for getting on that creators course, and I left after 25 minutes, and Laura Mathias was there and she was like, lean on me, I got you, babes. And I was like, I can't, I'm going to go down. And I don't want to go down in front of 200 people. And I had to leave the launch because it was just fucking there.
But you would have been grateful if they did.
Yeah. And then if someone had given me a chair, I would have gone, oh God, thank you so much.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's a basic
standing in the middle of London, crying my eyes out, not going, oh my gosh, somebody's made a ableism discrimination. I was crying because I was cross at myself that it was one more thing that I couldn't do and that my disability had stopped me doing. And that's kind of like the point that I wanted to reiterate before. We still have internalized ableism doesn't go away. Even though it looks like we've got our shit together, I do not have my fucking shit together. None of us have our fucking shit together, because we're trying to navigate a world that is ever changing. And let's face it, let's not put a cherry on it. It's not getting any better. Like, are we better than where we were 60 years ago? Yes. But again, I'm not going to clap that. I'm not going to celebrate that. Are we better? When I first started working in the legal space and I was doing this at a legal perspective, are we better from where we were when I started training? No, we're fucking not. We're not. Nowhere near. We're actually getting worse, if anything. And it's so frustrating.
Do you know, I've just been obviously applauding everything you've said. Like, only half applauding. I'm applauding you, not the actions. But I'm starting to giggle because I'm like, poor Brooke's audience, they're going to be like, well, wow, this is like an F-bomb episode. Me and Celia together just bounce off each other. There's so much passion. But I think, like, we are so appreciative of the small things because we are so often on the outside, or as I actually now prefer to say, we are on the inaccessible outside looking in constantly. And we get so appreciative. And I think I would just love to get to a point where we don't have to continuously ask, where Celia doesn't have to go in and ask, where these awards, and I'm sorry to bring it back to awards, but I just have to say this, they need to be fucking accessible, because how can you sit up there and talk about inclusion when all you're doing is creating exclusion? How can you sit there and post inaccurate information about this significant movement and completely it's what it's about, completely mislead people what it's about, and you call yourself a DEI leader. Like, how are you getting people awarding? So what I would love to see, and this is probably ruin me if I get nominated in the International Diversity Award, but I don't even care, because what I'd love to see is some person or some organisation create awards that are within the corporate world that are fully accessible. Because I know Scope and Shaw Trust do amazing awards, but they're very for our communities. I want to see, I tell you what, I will come be your speaker. We'll all come be your speakers for free if you can manage to make the award that is fully,
if it's fully accessible.
Because none of them are.
If I get a fidget spinner, if I get a little sensory room, like, I'm your gal. I'm there. I don't need to see everyone. I just want to be in a little cozy room, maybe like 3 or 4 people at most. I don't need to overthink. Amazing.
It never happened though. It never happened because all these awards have turned into is a cash making scheme, and the recognition is like there's so many people who need to be recognised, but the organisations get recognised are inaccessible. You can't trust half these awards to a power list. Not power list, sorry, not what you call that one. The equity list. That's it. The equity list is like the equity list of employers, and you look at it and you think, well, how can this company be at number 1 when they've had so many lawsuits this year for disabled people, or they've let half their staff go, or they don't offer flexible working? Like, I'm sorry, we need to start getting really honest, and I think that's what's missing in this space is honesty. Honest that sometimes it's shit to be disabled. Honest that, yes, we haven't got a clue how to make something accessible, and honest that we don't know what ableism is. Let's just put our hands up and let's start educating. Take that corporate responsibility, as we said, and turn it to accountability.
Honesty really is the best policy. I have loved everything you guys have said today because, as I just said, you've been incredibly honest, and we don't hear this perspective a lot. Because this perspective, like we said, it isn't sexy. It can come off as that angry trope of disabled person and you complaining about your life when, as we've just explained, you should just be so grateful that you're even being offered a chair. And that's not how life should be. But to rein it back and let's tie this episode up in a lovely little disabled and proud bow, I'm going to ask you both, are you, Celia and Jamie, are you disabled and proud?
First.
I can see Jamie smiling. You go first, babe.
No, you go first. You go first.
Am I disabled and proud? I am community, so proud, because life has taken one big sledgehammer to all of us, and 99% of the time disability is out of our control. It's not something that has been done, we've done directly to ourselves. It's something we've had no control over, whether that's how we were born or something we've acquired. And, you know, I sit here as a 27-year-old and think most people my age don't deal with heart attacks. They don't deal with the fact that, you know, oh, don't run, don't walk, don't stand, because you're going to have an aortic dissection. The things I have dealt with in my life, most people couldn't even fucking imagine dealing with until they were 18, 90 years old. And that makes me proud of myself, of the fact that I've not overcome it, I've got through it. And that's what makes me proud. And I look at my community and I think I'm so fucking proud of all of us that we've got through it, that we're here. And I'm also so proud of the people that haven't got through it and fought and unfortunately didn't win their battles, but had to deal with everything that they dealt with. And there is such a lack of conversation around mental health and disability and how they tie in together. And it never leaves you. But that learning to be proud of who you are and not accepting it, because that's not the right word, but just sitting here and going, this is who I am. And 99% of the time, that's probably not going to change for a lot of us. So we have to find a way to be proud and get through it, and hope that the work that so many incredible people are doing that I'm so proud of eventually pays off for the next generations. I sit here and I full well know in my very short lifespan, I'm not going to see the change that I'm working for in the kind of policy and the politics space. I'm not going to see that change. I'm not going to experience that change. But I would like to be proud when the time comes to be able to sit there and say, I hope I made a dent. I hope even if it was just a tiny chink out of the giant out of the giant mountain, I hope I made a little chink. I'm not necessarily proud of the fact that I'm really sick and I'm, you know, got tubes coming out of the left, right, and centre. But I'm proud of it, and I work that everybody is doing.
That's so beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
Like, I was like, oh my God,
I feel
I'm gonna cry again. I'm going to cry again. Oh.
I love it. Everyone just comes on my podcast and cries.
Oh God. I don't know how to follow up Celia. Like, am I disabled and proud? I think I am proud. But again, like Celia, I'm not proud because I'm disabled, because it's not fun. Like, I'm registered blind, autistic, and ADHD. Like, I face inaccessibility, and the first thing I do is fight with myself. Oh my God, not again! Flip the computer, storm out of the room. Like, people would probably be like, "Oh, you've rage issues." And I'm like, I probably do, but I just can't help it. Like, I try to find ways to manage and cope, but the best thing for me to do is to express myself, let it out in that moment. Because when I foster it, it gets worse. So I think for me, I'm not proud that I face inaccessibility. I'm not proud of society, but I am so fudging proud that I made it through, because I've been down that path. I look at my nephew now, who has the same condition as me, and I look at him and I pray to God, or the gods, or whatever is out there. Like, honestly, like, I question my own beliefs around that, but like, whatever, whoever is out there listening, I look at him and I say, please don't let that child ever go through half of what I went through. If I can continue doing what I'm doing today, to make change in education, to make change in schools, to make change in employment, if I can make change that prevents them having to go through it, I can die happy. I can be happy. But equally, I know the work that I'm doing is having a bigger impact. So it's like, I'm helping people. I'm hoping with my work, my content, get through experiences or break down experiences that they didn't think they could talk about, because we need to talk about it. So I'm proud that I'm able to help facilitate those conversations. I'm not proud of the responses of people and stuff, but I think, to wrap it up, I am proud of the disabled community. But yeah, we have a long way to go.
Celia, dive in with what you're going to say, because I saw your face contort.
Do it. Say the thing. Say the thing.
Say the thing. Right. If people put out a survey and it's got a powerful message and powerful meaning, please don't use it as a fucking opportunity to be an ableist idiot or to personally attack certain people running that campaign. We see you. Please don't use it as an opportunity to secretly attack people.
Can we add one more thing to that?
I'll let you.
If something says, if you identify as disabled or a person with disability, neurodivergent, or any other label, and your first question is, do you identify as this? And you tick no, a survey will come before you ready to fill it in. Like, stop using non-disabled privilege to fill in surveys on behalf of disabled people, and also stop using, this is one's vibe specific, I think, to somebody on LinkedIn today. Stop using your non-disabled privilege to talk about Disability Pride Month, when the message that you're giving is not about Disability Pride Month. It's giving self-serviced vibes, because Disability Pride Month is not about sexuality. It is about every beautiful, diverse disabled person.
I love this.
My favourite is when people put out Disability Pride posts and they haven't used camel case hashtagging, there's no image descriptions.
I hate
I just sit there and I said, don't we love a good tick box? This is beautiful. Well done. Congratulations on actually, if you've got a large audience. Yeah, what you've just done is actually not just promoted incorrect messaging, but you've also pissed off a lot of people. But that's scary, the fact that people then comment and go, yeah, amazing, blah, 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 blah. But that you've just promoted incorrect accessibility. Yeah. So we're just stuck in this vicious cycle.
Be open to learning.
Do you know what, guys?
Please, your brain is...
Guys, I have loved this conversation and hearing your truths and hearing what you guys have to say about unlearning ableism and the work that you do is really wonderful. I want to thank you both for coming on and being a part of the Disability Pride Month specials.
Thank you
guys for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. And apologies to anyone who doesn't like swearing. We went to town.
You will find them at Jamie Shields.
Shall I just add one more fuck on the end? There we go.
Guys, it's been wonderful. I love you both. I love what you do, and I'll speak to you soon.